What's going on, everybody, and welcome back once again to the channel. And before we get into today's video, make sure to subscribe and slack that like button. So today's video, I'm going to be giving out my top 5 tight ends in the NFL right now, continuing this video series of each position, top 5 currently. So let's begin. Coming in at number 5, I have TJ Hawkinson, who plays and looks like the second coming of George Kittle, who will be entering his 4th season in the NFL this year. Still a young tight end. Last year he missed some time. He played 12 games, so he missed a total of 5. He still tallied 584 yards, 4 touchdowns. Now, you got to remember, there's certain guys that are just on a whole other level. And when I say that, really the top 3. So having 583 yards in 12 games is a very impressive season for a tight end, and especially when he's really his team's top target. Because yeah, the Lions last year really had no true wide receiver for Jared Goff and company to target. Sure, they had Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was pretty good, but overall, no top tier receiver. TJ Hawkinson, really, the offense evolved around him, and that's going to force a lot of double teams on him, and it did, so it made it much more difficult, but he was still able to put together a pretty productive season. I think he is one of the best up-and-coming young tight ends in the league. Coming in at number 4, I have Darren Waller, who some people have, I've seen some rankings that have put him as the number 1. I think that's a little bit crazy. Last year he had a good year, but it was a little bit of a setback from his previous 2 seasons. His previous 2 seasons he had 1,100 yards plus. Last season he just had 665, but he also missed 6 games. He only scored 2 touchdowns, but this guy's one of the better wide receiving tight ends in the league, and he can block too. A pretty impressive story overcoming what he overcame, and it's going to be interesting to see that Raiders offense with Darren Waller and Devontae Adams, 2 top 4 players in their respective positions there. Coming in at number 3, I have the guy coming off of his rookie season, Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts was the most exciting tight end prospect coming out of college in a long time. He was picked number 4 overall by the Falcons last year, and he was really just that good. In his rookie season, he had over 1,000 yards receiving, and he had to deal with being on a team that really was not very good. Not a good old line, which impacts the tight end because that just impacts the passing game as a whole. A weird stat is he only scored 1 touchdown though, but I don't really think that's that big of a deal. I think maybe the main reason that he had trouble scoring, in the red zone was mainly because he's a little bit, he's not like your traditional big tight end. He's really like a wide receiver playing tight end. It really feels that way. His speed is insane. He's probably the fastest tight end in the NFL. But I think his game is only going to get better. We'll see how he's able to do with Marcus Mariota as his quarterback this year. Drake London should be a good partner in crime for him. And I think he's very explosive, and I think in the next few years, once the next 2 guys on my list start to get older, Kyle Pitts will emerge as the top tight end in football. The Falcons have a very special player there. Coming in at number 2, I got George Kittle. Now, ESPN, according to their poll among players, coaches, and NFL executives, George Kittle was number 1. George Kittle, in my opinion, is not number 1, and I really don't understand what it is that people still believe he's number 1. He's a great player. Look, I have him at number 2. Last season, he had 910 yards receiving. Season before that, he had 634. So in the last 2 seasons combined, he's had a little over 1,500 yards only 8 touchdowns in those 2 seasons. And that's really nothing compared to what Travis Kelsey has done. Kittle also struggled with some drops last year, had a couple of fumbles last year as well. Obviously, he's the best blocking tight end in the NFL right now, one of the greatest blocking tight ends we've ever seen. But he's not a better overall player than the next guy on my list. And if you look at his stats in the postseason this last year, he had 7 catches through 3 games. That's just averaging 2 catches per game, about, which isn't bad. Obviously, 2 catches per game in the playoffs isn't bad, but for a guy of his magnitude, you would think he would be a little bit more involved. And it wasn't that he wasn't on the field, it was simply he just wasn't getting open, and sometimes he would just flat out drop the ball. He was targeted 14 times and only came away with 7 of them, 50%. And George Kittle does not, his game just does not compare to the next guy on my list, and I'll get into it more now. So coming in at number 1, Travis Kelsey, who I believe to be maybe the second best tight end of all time at the very least, and soon will be the best tight end of all time. And I think he's already cemented himself as the best receiving tight end of all time. Last season, he had 1,125 yards receiving, 92 catches, had 9 touchdowns. Season before that, he had 1,400 yards. He's had now 6 straight seasons with 1,000 yards or more. I mean, he's just an absolute beast. And last year he had less fumbles than George Kittle, which is an important stat for tight ends. Your tight ends are supposed to be your old reliables. And if you look in the playoffs, Kelsey, in the same amount of games as Kittle, had 23 catches. Kittle had 7. So he beats him in that category too. Kelsey also had 3 touchdowns in the postseason, while Kittle and company had 1. And like I said, Kelsey's just a better overall receiving tight end. He runs his routes better. He finds the open space in zones. People always say why is Travis Kelsey always so wide open? Because he reads the defense like if he's a quarterback and finds the open spots. George Kittle could be maybe the more gritty player, but I think that Travis Kelsey is better than him in pretty much almost every category. More catches, more yards, more touchdowns. And, the people who like to make the argument, well, Kelsey has Mahomes and Kittle has Garoppolo. Well, I find it very funny and contradicting that the same people who say, oh, Kelsey has Mahomes, are the same people who then, when they're knocking on Mahomes, say, well, Mahomes has Kelsey. So which one of them is overrated to you? I think they're just both the best at their position, but which one do you think is more overrated? Because a lot of these people love to say Kelsey needs Mahomes, but then they also say Mahomes needs Kittle. Maybe they're both just really good darn football players. Kelsey's better than Kittle. End of discussion. You can nitpick what something Kelsey didn't do that Kittle was able to do, but Kelsey was better. And I think everyone who is being honest with themselves knows that. So comment down below what you guys think about this list. Tight end rankings have been pretty controversial lately. A lot of different sorts of lists, but yeah, comment down below what you guys think. And other than that, I'll see you guys next time.